Welcome to The Explainer. You know, so much of what we see and do online has been carefully, scientifically tested. Well, today, we're going to peel back the curtain on the code that makes all that possible. We are deconstructing the digital blueprint that turns marketing guesses into data-driven decisions, a powerful little thing called the AbnExperiment API object. So to get started, let's just think about a scenario you've probably already seen, a dozen times today, whether you realized it or not. It all kicks off with a really, really simple question. So picture this. You're on a website and there's a button. But is it the right button? Would a different color, maybe different words, get more people to click? How in the world do these companies actually decide which version is the best one? Well, the smart ones, they don't leave it up to chance. They don't guess. They use a method called A/B testing. Basically, they show different versions to different people and just measure what happens. And behind every single professional A/B test, there's a plan. A really, really detailed plan. Now, in a lot of the biggest platforms out there, that plan isn't just a document. It's a specific piece of code. It's called the AbnExperiment object. And you should just think of it as the master blueprint for the entire test. It holds every rule, every goal, and every piece of data needed to run a fair, accurate experiment. So if we're going to build this blueprint, what exactly needs to go into it? Let's break down the foundation. The absolute non-negotiable things you need to even get this thing off the ground. Okay, you literally cannot start a test without these three fields. First, you need a simple name that a human can read and immediately understand, like homepage button test. Easy. Second, you need a developer name. That's the unique ID the system uses so it never gets confused. And finally, you need a DataSpace ID. This basically just tells the system, hey, all the stuff for this test, it lives over here. It keeps everything organized. Next up, the blueprint needs to know where it came from. And this source field is actually super important. It tells you how the test was born. Was it built by hand by a content editor in some visual tool? Or was it kicked off automatically by a process running in the background? Knowing that gives you a ton of context when you're looking at the results later on. All right, so our blueprint is drafted. All the foundational stuff is in place. Now for the fun part. Let's actually bring this experiment to life and start collecting some data. You know, every experiment has its own little life story, and that's tracked by the state field. It begins its life as created. That's our draft. Then it's started. It's live, out in the wild with real users. Once we've collected enough data, it gets stopped. And finally, it's archived, saved for the history books. It's this very logical path from an idea to a real insight. Now here's a really subtle but super important distinction you need to get: the difference between state and status. Think of it like this. State is the big picture. Is the test running or is it over? But status tells you what the system is doing this very second. Is it processing results? Is it active? Maybe it's deleting all data. It's like the real-time heartbeat of the experiment. And speaking of precision, this blueprint records the exact timestamps for everything important. The started date marks the exact moment it kicked off. The stop date marks the finish line, and last analyzed tells you the last time the system actually crunched the numbers. There is absolutely zero ambiguity here. Look, you can run the coolest experiment in the world, but it's completely pointless if you don't know how you're keeping score. So the blueprint has to be crystal clear about what winning actually looks like. And that brings us to what might be the single most important field of all, the PrimaryMetricId. This is what links the entire experiment to a single specific goal. Are we trying to get more clicks, more signups? This ID points directly to that success metric. It is the North Star for the entire test. Okay, so once we're measuring that goal, who gets to declare the winner? The WinnerSelectionMode field gives you two choices. The default is manual, where a human analyst looks at the data and makes the final call. But you can also set it to automatic, where you basically tell the system to declare a winner as soon as it's statistically certain that one version is better. So it's human intuition versus machine speed, and the choice is built right in. So the winner is chosen. The test is over. What happens next? Well, that blueprint doesn't just disappear. It becomes a permanent part of a much bigger story of learning and getting better over time. See, this object doesn't live on an island. It's connected to a whole ecosystem of other records. AbnExperimentHistory tracks every single change ever made, a complete audit trail. AbnExperimentShare controls who has permission to even see the results. There's even a feed to track what the team was talking about during the test. It's a full 360-degree view of the experiment's entire life. So when you put all this together, it becomes pretty clear. The AbnExperiment object is that rigorous, structured blueprint that turns a marketing hunch into a data-driven decision. It's what separates a wild guess from a scientific conclusion. And really, that's the whole journey. But of course, in the world of digital optimization, the end of one test is really just the beginning of the next one. It's a continuous cycle of asking questions, testing, and learning. Which, leaves us with the most important question of all. What are you going to test next?